Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another album of the week. This is episode number 140, and today's episode is dedicated to Killer, the classic fourth album from Alice Cooper, or the Alice Cooper Band, depending on, since the Alice Cooper Band, in a way, represents this era, because by Welcome to My Nightmare, that's like considered his actual solo album period, and that's what he's been at least been on for at least since 75 has been solo. But still, the person whose name is literally on the album itself and whose artist this album gets credited to is, well, Alice Cooper. So that's what I'm just going on. It's the fourth album for, of course, Alice Cooper. Or then just says the Alice Cooper Band. You know, it's kind of one of those really confusing things to those. Either way, that's what it pretty much is. It's the fourth album from the actual Alice Cooper Band. So, there we go. The album, of course, was recorded at the RCA in Chicago in 1971, produced by Bob Ezrin. This would be, I believe, the second time Bob Ezrin was producing for them, because he had produced their previous album, Love It to Death, which was more of a transitional album because of, it was, what makes it also transitional was that, for one, it was the last to be released on Frank Zappa's label, Straight Records, but then eventually end up getting repressed through Warner Brother Records, which again, Killer would then mark itself as the first album to be released on, the Warner Brothers Records. So, eventually it does get released through Warner Brothers on November 27th, 1971, and since we have been, past November 27th, which was about 2 weeks ago, it's pretty much reached its 50th anniversary. So that's why I felt it was, I think, right enough to finally spotlight this album. And since I've got a lot of fond memories of listening to this album, and that's what I'm mostly going to be focusing on here right now, is instead of just the backstory or the history, because there's plenty of stuff you can read up on it, or you can, there are documentaries, or at least biographies, and plenty of biography books besides little movies or stuff. You know, there's plenty of places to look at if you want to really read into the actual backstory or anything that really leads into at least the recording of Killer, which right now I don't really feel like getting into. But again, it of course comes after, again, the very transitional Love It to Death album. But for the most part, I'm just going to be focusing on the fond memories that I have of Killer. So, let's just get into that, shall we? Let's just get into at least my fond memories. But first, let's do a track listing rundown. Again, we got 8 songs for this album, and all clocks in at the length of 37 minutes and 8 seconds. So, the 8 songs on here, it begins with Under My Wheels, Be My Lover, Halo of Flies, Desperado, You Drive Me Nervous, Yeah, 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 Dead Babies, and then ending with the title track. So there's your 8 songs. Where do I really begin with me looking back at Killer and what it really meant to me growing up and what impact it made on me when growing up. And it definitely is one of those albums that really... It really opened up a journey and it really created personal preferences, templates for the music I would end up liking. It really was one of those gateway albums, especially when it comes to heavy music. This was one of those albums, and when you got songs like Halo of Flies on here, and You Drive Me Nervous, Under My Wheels, Dead Babies, and of course the aforementioned title track, these were the songs that you could say that really it made it easy for me to really kind of search out for albums or music bands that were in this sort of style. This was one of, and again, it does rank up there as one of my absolute favorite albums from Alice Cooper. It might even be my #1 favorite. That's just the way I feel about this album. That's why I think it's a great, it just seems great for me to finally able to really bring you guys onto my journey on my sort of history of just cutting my teeth basically on Killer from Alice Cooper. And again, it just made me a raving fan. This was the album that did it for me. I mean, I knew about, songs like School's Out. There was a compilation disc that, of course, that was in the family and whatnot. I think it was I think it was Alice Cooper Greatest Hits, I believe was this called. And again, even my dad having a cassette copy of like School's Out and of course $1 Billion Babies. I knew he had those albums, but I didn't really pay more attention to his cassette tapes. I mean, he had, of course, 7-Eleven cups of Alice Cooper from around the Welcome to My Nightmare period. So he was a big thing. When I was still growing up, he was still relatively relevant at the time. I mean, actually, the first time I heard School's Out, the song itself was in the Wes Craven horror movie Scream from 1996. That was the first time I actually heard of Alice Cooper to begin with, and when after school, just hopping into the back of my dad's car, what does he have playing in the background? It's, of course, the School's Out. And it's from the actual cassette release he had of the album. That's where then I heard Gutter Cats versus the Jets. That was the first time I actually heard that song and a Looney Tune and that. But Killer was the first time that it really just latched onto, because I just remember one day, I think my dad, after coming from at the time, it was referred to as Tower Records. Again, Raspin took over that spot, but now it's in a much different spot now. Still, I just remember coming in, I think, again, from school, just hopping into my dad's car, and all of a sudden, here's a copy of Killer. Or at least, you know what? I might have been there when he picked it up. I can't, because if he was looking for that on CD. And again, I was so brand new to the musical releases of Alice Cooper, and Killer was one of those sought out albums. But eventually, also next to it was even like a copy of Alice Cooper Goes to Hell. Still, I knew about that album. So this was one of those really new albums to me growing up as a kid, and that album was literally played in his car for the remainder of the entire year. I don't think it ever left his fucking, I think it stayed in the CD player for a long time. It was one of those, it was like one of his personal favorites, and it became one of my personal favorites. But my God, the memories I just have listening to this album, again, with songs like Under My Wheels, a classic hard rocker, Be My Lover, which I've known about for years. I've heard it again on the Greatest Hits disc. But still, I think as part of the album, it really does flow quite well with the actual album. Then, of course, you get into Halo of Flies, which a very interesting thing when reading into this song. And I'll get to me just showing you my absolute love for at least Halo of Flies. But I'll read you what the song apparently was kind of made about, where it was the inspiration for. But again, reading onto the Wikipedia page here for at least for what's in the songs section. So according to Cooper's liner notes in the compilation, The Definitive Alice Cooper, that might have been the Greatest Hits disc. I'm not sure. Still, an attempt, this was apparently what the song itself was, an attempt by the band to prove that they could perform King Crimson-like progressive rock suits. And was supposedly about a Smirch-like organization. Which, what the fuck is a Smirch? Russian. Wasn't a Smirch, SMERSH, was an umbrella organization for the independent counterintelligence agency in the Red Army formed in late 1942 or even earlier, but officially announced only on the 14th of April of 1943. The name SMERSH was coined by Joseph Stalin. Here you go. I guess you're getting a history lesson, folks. The formal justification for its creation was to subvert the attempts by Nazi German, or at least Nazi Germany, forces to infiltrate the Red Army on the Eastern Front. So I'm just going to stop right there, but that's what Hail of Flies is, at least its concept, the story for the song is based on around. But again, musically, its compositions is more so, again, I guess was their attempt at a King Crimson-like progressive rock song. And it does have some progressive elements. It changes riffs and even tempos plenty of times. Actually, it always came off as a very dark and heavy song, but by the time it reached that almost climax part of it, where the actual guitars start rolling in, it kind of turns into one of the earliest or at least not progressive, early proto-metal songs from 1971. It's really up there as one of the earliest proto-metal songs, and also it's got a riff that I think ended up getting quite reused by a lot of metal bands in the 1980s. I kind of said the same thing when I used the song as part of my Hard and Heavy 70s month that I did back in 2018. So I kind of made that clear, and I used that same part anyways, that same section of the song for that video for like at least America early 70s. And it kind of belongs there. Again, along with maybe the early first Captain Beyond album and whatnot, it is, again, an early sort of proto-metal song, and it's one of the most kick-ass songs. Eventually, when it gets to that section, that's, to me, is what really wins me, or what won me over with the song. It's such a heavy song. It really kind of also shows, in a little bit, too, maybe was probably more so inspired by the absolute piss and vinegar, like bands like maybe MC5 and the Stooges in a way, or the Amboy Dukes, that sort of early, Detroit rock scene, where they were, again, those bands were kind of just loud and heavy, and that's what was kind of also his answer to, in terms of that part of the song, but it just comes off as just straight up being one of the earliest proto-metal songs, and it's one of the reasons why I coined the song, or just crown it as one of my absolute favorite Alice Cooper songs. And of course, we get into probably the most, one of the other most well-known songs off the album. It's one that people tend to really talk about also when they think of Killer. And that's Desperado. Which, again, it's a great song nonetheless. Really is, it's got the wit and everything of Alice Cooper is in the song, but the thing is the story around the song, the inspiration. Alice Cooper apparently has changed his story, it seems like twice already. He has changed it maybe once, I don't know. But apparently, according to Wikipedia, as said in the liner notes for A Fistful of Alice, and of course in the studio with Redbeard, which spotlighted the album Killer and Love It to Death albums, that apparently the song Desperado was written about, which I've heard about this for years, and I always thought it really was about, of course, the aforementioned Jim Morrison of The Doors, and again, Alice Cooper referred to as a friend, surprisingly, again, who died the year this album was released. But apparently, though, Alice Cooper ended up changing the story for at least the inspiration for the song here, on an NPR radio interview, which then he changed to where the song Desperado was written about Robert Vaughn's character Lee in the Western movie The Magnificent Seven, again with Charles Bronson and those and Yul Brynner. It's just interesting because I have seen a bit of The Magnificent Seven, and every time I've heard Desperado, I don't know why Alice Cooper changed his story on the inspiration for the song Desperado. Why he changed it from being inspired by the death of his friend Jim Morrison of The Doors to Robert Vaughn's character Lee from the Magnificent Seven. I don't know why he did that, because I've seen it. I don't think it really completely fits with what's really about the character that's being sung about in Desperado. I think, if anything, it makes more sense that it was about Jim Morrison. Because again, if you really think about it, Jim Morrison was also kind of, I always looked at as a outlaw in terms of in the music scene, because of he just came, you could tell, yeah, he was at times maybe a little bit of a prima donna or something. You know, he was a bit too much of a, he brought too much baggage to the band, because in terms of publicity wise, he was always a controversy, he always was in the news, he did shit. But in a way, if you look at what the whole concept of what an outlaw is, Jim Morrison, I think, was probably a musical outlaw. So I think, if anything, the song Desperado kind of really ends up being, I think it really seems to be a lot more about Jim Morrison than really about somebody from the Magnificent Seven. However, again, you always can look at it. I've always kind of, I would say, it had to be at least seen to be more sort of more closer to at least the life of Jim Morrison than really about the guy from the Magnificent Seven. However, there could be some legitimacy to at least Alice Cooper's more recent claims about the inspiration for the song Desperado. There might be some legitimacy to it, but who knows? I don't know why he changed it a second time. Who knows why? It's very interesting, but I'm just going to leave it there. Either way, it is a classic song, and it is one of my other favorites off the album. I mean, there's really not a song that I really dislike. However, I do kind of have to say that the song Yeah, 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 especially most because of its song title, kind of pushes it a little bit towards kind of cringy side in a way, because of it's like kind of, I don't know, I think it's almost one of those kind of lazy song titles, but still musically it's a fine sort of garage rock style heavy rocker, and I don't mind it. I think that the other song that really kind of that I have to bring up, that really kind of stirred up a lot of controversy for the album, has to be the song Dead Babies, which apparently I guess offended a lot of parents, because they thought that, I guess, the song was about, well, dead babies. They thought it was about, I guess, maybe the band killed babies, or they thought it was great about singing about already dead fetuses, babies. Even though technically the song is not really about dead babies. It's a song that's actually about anti-child abuse. It was a message, again, about child abuse, and that's what it was mostly about. So if anything, maybe the parents did somewhat pay attention to the lyrics, and they just didn't like the fact that they're being told that they might be, I guess, putting harm on their child. But that, I think, if anything, you know what? That just, again, they don't like truth, I guess. People don't like to be told the truth. That's what it is. But it's definitely it's an interesting one, because, again, this is why I think I've always kind of looked at Killer as being one of the more serious albums from Alice Cooper, because it really dealt with more darker subjects, especially when you got like a song like Desperado or Halo of Flies and Dead Babies, and of course the title track. It's probably one of the most darker albums to begin with from Alice Cooper. I mean, the previous album, Love It to Death, had some darker themes, but I think this one was definitely more darker. And this was, of course, before Welcome to My Nightmare. But this one, I think, really kind of played around with the more horror themes, even more so, especially when you got like a song like the title track, which they'll kind of bring up as a kid. The ending part for Killer, fucking, it really it creeped me out as a kid. It really was a creepy ending with the sort of sounds of them literally hanging the killer basically in the song. There, it's like the story's about, I think, a deranged serial killer that a town of angry townsfolks are on the hunt for. Basically about, I guess you could say, town justice or something, you know. I guess maybe Alice Cooper was hinting at the themes for Halloween Kills. Evil dies tonight. God damn it. Either way, though, but at least in the ending for Killer, the killer does at least get killed. Oh shit. Was I supposed to actually spoil any of the ending for Halloween Kills? Maybe not. Who knows? Probably nobody gives a shit. Not like I actually give a shit anyways. Still, though, the killer does end up getting caught and hung. Literally, they put him on the death penalty. He gets hung. That's his death penalty. And literally the sound effect that they chose for at least of them literally hanging him, at least the sounds of at least the mechanism or the rope getting already cut or whatever, it always creeped me out. It freaked me out as a kid, especially in the car. Even the daylights, it always freaked me out. But now I love it. It's one of those things now I love about the song. So it's one of those interesting, there's just those simple things about the thing I think that really kind of propel the song. But it's one of the most darker songs. It's a slow, almost at times very doomy kind of song, but it's it adds such an atmosphere to it, and I like it. I've just grown to really love the song a lot more. And again, it's one of the darker Alice Cooper songs. It's just a bit of the sound I think I love. There's really not a song on here that I don't really like, even if I somewhat feel that the title for the song, Yeah Yeah Yeah, is fucking lazy. Still, it doesn't completely hurt that the song is a goddamn fun rocker. It's just good. There's nothing bad on here. I love everything on this entire album. So there we go. I just wanted to at least kind of bring you into some of just really express my love for Killer from Alice Cooper, and I hope I did a decent job of that. Still, there's really not a bad song here. I just love everything on here. Every bit of the band just sounded tight. I think, if anything, the albums after this one, I don't think were nearly as good as Killer, though. Again, Billion Dollar Babies kind of pushes it towards being at least a decent, good album, actually. School's Out, I think, almost feels like kind of throwaway at times, because that one, I think, Killer was such a dark album that School's Out went in, I think, they went a little too hokey in that direction. Like, if anything, it felt more like a parody almost. It was almost like a comedy album in a way. It didn't really feel like a step in a more that would build upon the style or the leanings of Killer, but instead it went in a completely far different direction. I mean, besides maybe containing the title track, which again I think it's one of the most overplayed Alice Cooper songs. Not that I think it's a terrible track, but it's like the most song that almost everyone tends to really think of Alice Cooper for the most part. Still, for the rest of the album, it's like a complete it went in a far different direction, and I think that's why I think I'm not that much of a fan of School's Out. But again, Billion Dollar Babies was more of a step back, or at least a step back in the right direction. But still, I don't think it really captured any of the brilliance that I felt Killer really had. Then, of course, you got Must Still Love, which I think it's a fine album. It's definitely, again, it's no Killer, but it's still not that terrible of a record. I guess I can say Welcome to My Nightmare was the more logical, what should have been the more logical direction after Killer. But instead, they went in so different directions and whatnot, or kind of going different styles or something. But again, instead of really trying to keep up the more sort of almost dirgy, sort of just straight up just the more dirgy, again, grimy, heavy sort of garage rock of Killer that had, of course, with the sort of progressive leanings again. It should have, they didn't really have any of those kind of elements. They didn't try to progress on top of that. So there we go. Build on top of it, all of that. So there we go. That's pretty much all I can say. What else I can say about Killer? That's all I can say about it. So again, it's reached the 5th anniversary again, November 27th, 1971. We're past November 27th. If you have any, again, just like me, fond memories of listening to at least Killer, again, if you've got any sort of positive or negative, you can leave those comments in the comments section below. But if you've never heard Killer, you've been living under a rock. it's one of those quintessential Alice Cooper albums that I think you definitely should check out. So there we go. That's all I can say about that. So with that, hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heather Thrasher saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.